Welcome to the Secret Garden Podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hamilton. This show is about seeing the whole world as a magical place for secret rendezvous, where we dance, where we express our provocative ideas with courage, where we play and are enchanted with beauty, where the miracles grow and the world reawakens. This garden is watered by you, the listener. Please consider helping it grow by becoming a donor on patreon.com/Heather Hamilton. Now it's time to dance in the garden. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in again. Today I have been reflecting on sources of meaning in life. I have been thinking about the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. If you're not familiar with this book, I highly suggest that you read it. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychologist. He spent many years in concentration camps during the Holocaust. He was working on developing new psychological theories to help his patients. He developed this work over many years. And when he arrived at the concentration camp, he had with him a book which basically contained his entire life's work that was taken from him at the time and burned or disposed of. He was stripped of that, I think, pretty much immediately when he arrived. And in the book, he details his story of survival, the nuances that he found in good versus evil, how he would observe people becoming spiritual giants within the concentration camps, the way that he had to listen to his intuition and kind of gamble on his intuition, for lack of a better term, in order to survive, and how often being able to sense certain things through intuition, through a very deep sense of self and his observations, kind of gambling on those intuitions, made the difference between life and death for him. He is careful to differentiate in the book about how that he's not talking about the people who were immediately separated and thrown in gas chambers or murdered upon arriving at the camps. He talks about the use of his intuition for the people who were, quote unquote, given the opportunity to survive in certain ways, and how had to either outsmart the guards, navigate their ways through the camps. And he talks about how he did that and how he felt like he was guided by something internally inside of him, and how important it was to listen to that internal voice in those moments of life or death, where you were either going left or right. It's very interesting, the observations that he makes in those moments, and the palpable quality of them, and how they felt in his body and how they felt to him. He was in concentration camps for many years. And being a psychologist, he was continuing to observe the behavior of people, both prisoners and guards, in the camps, and really what it took to survive. And in the book that he wrote, Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about 3 primary sources of meaning in life, where people can find deep meaning in life. And certainly for him, for many people in the camps, and for ourselves, finding this meaning in life was quite literally the motivation to survive. A life and death, in some circumstances, one cannot survive without a deep source of meaning. And so he names three sources where one can derive very deep meaning. The first one is through vocation, through a deep sense of engaging in meaningful work, creative endeavors, work that contributes to something larger than yourself. And Viktor Frankl emphasized that um, by developing a sense of what you are meant to do, the kind of work that you are meant to contribute in this life and to this world, provides a very, very deep sense of meaning for a person that can help them um, overcome adversity. Many times, uh, this kind of work for people is in conjunction with a sense of being on death ground, keeping the idea of your death in mind, and with the idea of your death in mind, it brings a sense of vitality and aliveness and urgency to the work that you feel you must do. So any laziness or apprehension that humans are very prone to, oh, I'll do it later, I'll get to that later. This has to be overcome by a sense of urgency, a sense of putting yourself on death's ground of I could die today, I must do what I am meant to do. I must gift to the world what I'm meant to gift to the world today. And so it's with that sense of urgency and that sense of clarity about what one is meant to do, what one wants to leave on this earth after they're gone, um, that creates a deep source of meaning for people. The second is adopting a specific attitude through suffering. Frankl makes it clear in his book that he doesn't believe that all suffering is meaningful. He thinks that some suffering is mechanical. If suffering is happening and it can be alleviated, then many times the meaning comes through alleviating the suffering. And that's very, very important. But then there's also suffering, which, while isn't inherently meaningful, is unavoidable, and how one confronts that suffering, how one chooses to bear it within themselves, creates a deep sense of resilience, courage, personal responsibility, and can lead to a deep sense of meaning and reflection on one's life. I wanted to read a passage from the book which highlights how unavoidable suffering, when faced in the right way, can lead to a deep sense of meaning, purpose, enlightenment, and gratitude towards life. So the setting here is Frankl is witnessing a young woman who is days away from death in a concentration camp. And I'll just read you the passage. He says, "This young woman knew that she would die in the next few days, but when I talked to her, she was cheerful in spite of this knowledge. I am grateful that fate has hit me so hard," she told me. "In my former life, I was spoiled and did not take spiritual accomplishments seriously." Pointing through the window of the hut, she said, "This tree here is the only friend I have in my loneliness." Through that window, she could see just one branch of a chestnut tree, and on the tree were two blossoms. "I often talk to this tree," she said to me. I was startled and didn't quite know how to take her words. Was she delirious? Did she have occasional hallucinations? Anxiously, I asked her if the tree replied. Yes. What did it say to her? She answered, it said to me, I am here, I am here, I am life, eternal life. This passage about the woman and the chestnut tree at the very end of her life, where she says, I am grateful for my fate, that it almost feels obscene to me to even repeat the woman's words, to read her own words to you about feeling grateful, for feeling gratitude about dying in a concentration camp. How could anyone say this? It's offensive to our ears. But what I hear from this is this woman's attitude and disposition towards the unavoidable suffering in her life, how she let it bear down on her in a way that transformed and transmuted all her pain and suffering and any shallowness or egoic vanity to be transformed into deep gratitude, deep appreciation, deep love, and the communion that she had with, my word for it is Christ, but with the branch of the chestnut tree that was speaking to her. I am here. I am here. I am life. I'm eternal life. She was communing with God and understood the whole world to be vibrant, alive, and speaking to her. And many times that realization only comes through the the crushing weight of suffering, so much so that the body, the ego, is broken down enough that the spirit can then see through human eyes and understand the very nature of reality. In the last podcast, I talked about speaking with David Bentley Hart about his book, All Things Are Full of Gods. And this is really the essence of the book is the chestnut tree was full of God. The woman who was dying was full of God. And God, through that tree, was communing with this woman, a companion to her, and she had nowhere else that she wanted to be other than laying there in that bed with God. When you're with God, when you feel an abundance of radiance, beauty, the sense of being unconditionally loved, unconditionally held, where else would you want to go? That's the experience that we all want in life, and she encountered that in bed, dying in a concentration camp. And so, for anyone to say that there's not meaning to be found in that kind of suffering, that this woman is evidence to the contrary and shows that though suffering isn't inherently meaningful, how we can become spiritually accomplished, so to speak, by the way that we face and transform our experience of suffering. The final way that Frankl says that humans can find deep meaning is through an experience or an encounter with someone, someone that you deeply, deeply love. That love for a person, a specific person, can lead to a sense of deep meaning. So I can reflect back to a time, a very dark time in my life, where I was experiencing a very, very deep depression. And the only thoughts that I could think were, I want to die and I love my kids. I want to die and I love my kids. And it was the image of my children that helped me to ride out that dark moment. And I think what Viktor Frankl is saying here, that a deep, deep love for a person, the image of a person, whether that be a child, a lover, a friend, a parent, whoever, someone that you love deeply, that the image and the love that that image conjures up can create a deep sense of meaning and pull you through the darkest of times. And so I'm going to read another passage from the book. The setting here is Frankl being forced to work in horrible conditions in the snow, in the freezing snow. So he says, we had arrived at our work site. Everybody rushed into the dark hut in the hope of getting a fairly decent tool. Each prisoner got a spade or a pickaxe. Can't you hurry up, you pigs? Soon we had resumed the previous day's positions in the ditch. The frozen ground cracked under the point of pickaxes and sparks flew. The men were silent, their brains numb. My mind still clung to the image of my wife. A thought crossed my mind. I didn't even know if she were still alive. I knew only one thing, which I have learned well by now. Love goes very far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. Whether or not he is actually present, whether or not he is still alive at all, ceases somehow to be of importance. I did not know whether my wife was alive, and I had no means of finding out. During all of my prison life, there was no outgoing or incoming mail. But at that moment, it ceased to matter. There was no need for me to know. Nothing could touch the strength of my love, my thoughts, and the image of my beloved. Had I known then that my wife was dead, I think that I would still have given myself undisturbed by that knowledge to the contemplation of her image, and that my mental conversation with her would have been just as vivid and just as satisfying. Set me a seal, set me like a seal upon thy heart. Love is as strong as death. And I was very moved by that, by the idea of an image of the beloved being stronger than death, and the irrelevance that he describes about whether she was dead or alive. He didn't know. It was the intensity of the source of love coming from within him. I love how he said, even if I had known that she was dead, which she was, he would still have given himself, surrendered himself, given himself fully to the contemplation of her image. And so a love that we give ourselves to fully never leaves us. It tethers us across space and time, across death. It's stronger than death. And I found so much comfort and beauty in the way that that image of his wife, that image of his beloved, pulled him through that very dark moment. Again, I resonate with that experience in the image of my children, pulling me through my own dark moments. For many of us, the love and devotion that we have to a religious figure like Christ, the image of Christ, pulling us through dark moments where it may not even be about doing anything. It may be about not doing anything, and how important having an image of a beloved someone in your mind can pull you through to not doing anything. Meaning not harming yourself, not acting on, the deep, dark desperation that you feel. And oftentimes it is only the image of a beloved that can carry us through those moments. And so I just felt led to share those three things, and also the importance of cultivating at least one, but hopefully more than one, before you face, deep suffering or deep dark moments, to cultivate a sense of meaning, vocation, some gift that you want to leave to the world, a sense of, what do I want to leave behind? What do I want to gift eternally through me to the world? When you face trials, tribulations, unavoidable suffering, working to transmute that suffering into gratitude, appreciation, letting yourself be crushed in a way that your spirit can be released, where you find a deep, deep sense of gratitude and satisfaction in the present moment, in the gifts, something as simple as a tree branch around you. And then finally, cultivating relationships with those around you where you can fall deeply, deeply in love with a person. I don't just mean romantic love, although that is a potentiality that I'm speaking of, but a beloved, a friend, a partner, a child, a religious figure like Christ or Mary, or all religions have our beloved religious figures, and how important it is to cultivate a sense of love and devotion. I am going to leave you with a poem from my upcoming book, Eat the Dirt. If you're interested in being notified of when the book releases, you can go to returningtoeden.com and sign up for my newsletter. I also have a Substack, Returning to Eden with Heather Hamilton, where I will announce that. It's called Saved by the Chestnut Tree, and it was inspired by the woman dying with the chestnut tree in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I'm going to leave you with the audiobook version, which includes music, and I hope you enjoy. How long, O God, must I remain here, caged like a bird with wings unclipped, longing to fly? Even in my bondage, you find me, a friend just outside the window, speaking to me in my loneliness. Each time you comfort me, a bar of the cage comes off. Though I haven't moved, and in fact, I have nowhere to go now. I wish to be right where I am because you're here with me, the chestnut tree who never moves, who never leaves. I find eternal life. Right where I am is where you are, and my heart is okay with it all, with how it is, with how it always was. Thanks for dancing with me in this episode of The Secret Garden. Please consider watering the garden by becoming a donor on patreon.com/Heather Hamilton. You can also visit returningtoeden.com, where you'll find my writing on Substack, my books, information about spiritual direction sessions, and speaking. Until next time, remember that the whole world is a secret garden.